And we're back again for another episode of the Lucky 13 podcast, where we talk about all things people and profit. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Lantz.
And I'm the other one, Josh Hauser. And I'm ready to talk about some deep stuff.
Oh, man. You started to give me a little bit of a view of this before we started this episode, and this is going to be some cool stuff.
Yeah, let's dive in. You mind just diving right into it? By the way, this might be the first time we need to actually, hold on, let me reposition my body. So suck in your gut, because they might need to watch this one to see this.
Yeah, so you can go out to YouTube, Lucky 13 podcast, YouTube. We're going to describe everything here. So if you're driving right now, don't worry, don't shut us off. Yep. Just keep listening. But it might be one that you want to go back to fact check us and get proof that what's happening in this room is actually what's happening in this room.
I love it. So let me start and I'm going to start with this Hulk principle, if you don't mind. And so there's three parts. There's lots of parts of your brain. I'm going to break it down into three simple parts. Think about that frontal lobe of your brain, this front part of your brain. This is the executive side. This is where everything is logic. This is our area of genius. When we're in our best, we're living here. Does that make sense? Then we have this emotional side, and this is a conscious state. When you get emotional, a lot of times you're like, I didn't realize I get emotional, but you actually do. Your body will let you know from a conscious state that emotion's coming up. And then we're going to talk about that fight or flight, that Maslow, that subconscious that sits in the back. And so we use the Incredible Hulk as the example. As in his normal executive state, he's a scientist, and he's solving problems and trying to figure out gamma radiation, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But anytime something starts to go wrong or something starts to offend him or he loses control of what's going on in the situation, his body would actually respond by his eyes going green. That's what we all remember with that, right? And you can actually see the shift from his executive state to his emotional state, which means he's no longer in logic mode. He's moved to a state of my emotions are starting to control my body reactions and maybe even starting to control my words. Good with it so far?
Yep.
And then if it persists, and remember, whatever we resist persists, and we'll talk about that in a second, then what happens is you shift into that subconscious. And what we don't know is when you're in this back of the brain, it controls all your body. This is fight, flight, or free. You hear gunshots, you see a saber-toothed tiger, we automatically have, without control, what we're going to do. We're either going to pee our pants, we're going to run, we're going to scream out loud. I love watching those videos where people will just pop out because that is the subconscious just reacting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In the business sense, I see this often in rooms, especially during conflict, that we're not walking in prepared. We haven't tapped into our executive brain and put essentially a block in our emotional state, trained it so that I don't dive into that subconscious.
Yeah.
We see it in sports where people making mistakes where their body just starts to fail because they're going this fight or flight freeze. Makes sense so far?
Yep.
All right. So
100%.
we started with this concept of what we resist persists. So if you're watching at home, I got what do you call these Chinese
finger
torture?
cuffs or finger handcuffs.
Yeah. So here's what happens is we put those on.
So what this is just a tube that, made out of cloth that you can put your fingers in.
And so Mike's going to put his tube in, and I want to let's put this as an argument. So it could be me and you doing the same thing. But right now, this is your self-talk with yourself. And what happens is you start to doubt yourself, and one part of your body says, no, we need to do this, and the other part of your brain says, no, we need to do this.
Yeah.
And when you do that, what happens to your fingers? What's going on with your fingers right now?
I can't get out of it.
Because you're resisting what to get into the solution, so it's going to continue to persist, and now you're going to be stuck in that.
Yeah.
And we see that in business world, we see that in leaders, we see that in frontline workers, that there's something that's come up and they're still resisting. And so the only way to get out of the Chinese cuffs is to lean in, to push in, to go all the way in, to the point where your fingers touch, and then your fingers automatically come out.
Yeah.
So there's a connection that has to happen. We'll talk about that connection a little bit. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it so does. Like, I mean, I'm going back to conflicts that I've had in my past, whether it be with coworkers or whether it be with Julie, my spouse, or kids or whatever. And when you just stay in that resistance mode, nothing ever gets resolved.
So I'm going to tie this to this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes that goes with this. It says, solutions come when you meet the underlying need for connection. And so the connection of your underlying need is you just needed to get your fingers to touch. So solutions come when you take the need and you tie it to a connection point. And the connection that's the collaboration. That's you and I solving a problem together rather than me being right and you being wrong.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you? So that was one thing. And so when we enter the business room, think about this. If you and I were off, and I just did this with the company, we both put our finger on. All right, put your fingers in. Now tell me your side. Now I'll tell you my side.
Yeah,
We just start to pull and pull and pull.
Yeah.
Okay, we're trying to solve the problem, so we need the connection, and then we can pull our fingers right out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sometimes that visual aid tells you why we need to come together.
Yeah, and we work with lots of people, you and I, on a regular basis, and there's some that just naturally show up with this like I want to collaborate for a solution, and then there's others that show up with this I got to win.
Correct.
And that's a challenge. And so maybe business leaders need to check themselves when they're walking into a room or when they are going into a conversation and saying, what are my goals of this? Is it to win this? Is it to collaborate and find a common solution? Is it to what is
and
it
I love
really
that
all
because
about?
we said, we should be looking for the solution, and solutions come with connections. If we look to win, well, what's the letter in the middle of win? What it was Kobe Bryant. There's no I in team, but there's an I in win, right?
Yeah.
And so if we're going into win, you're going to make it about yourself. And although you might win that argument, you'll lose the long-term war.
Yeah.
That won't be healthy for you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
I love that. That's really great. Yeah.
So let's shift gears. By the way, one of the things I love to work on, I call this DNA, is that when you have this battle, the DNA in you says you have to describe it first. You have to describe, why am I having this emotional turmoil right now? And then you got to name it. I love positive intelligence. This is my judge speaking, or this is my past speaking, or this is my experience. And so you just name it. This is what I'm going through. And then by doing that, you acknowledge it. And now you've let your DNA become part of that connection zone. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So let's take this to another level. This is going to get deep and nerdy and weirdy, and just go with me on this. Yeah. When we talked about that subconscious controls your brain, that subconscious also controls when you walk into a room. If you've walked in, and you and I are getting ready to walk in, and I know that you and I are off in some way, my subconscious will portray itself in how my body responds. And if I'm coming in with positive intent to solve this, my body will let you see that. This is the 55-38-7, right? 55 body language, 38 tonation, and 7 in the words. If my body comes in with, I'm prepared to battle you, my mind, my subconscious, I have a negative intent walking in, there's nothing I can do to stop that from happening. And the way we prove that is we call it the lifesaver test. So stay with me. So I'm gonna do it out loud, and then you're gonna do it quietly, and I'm just gonna observe what I see you doing.
Guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess what you're doing. I'm gonna observe what you're doing and tell me. Okay. I'll tell you what you're thinking.
So let me describe the situation.
Yep.
So Josh is holding on right now. If you're not watching on YouTube, he's holding a string that goes down about 3 inches, and it's tied to a lifesaver.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you put your elbow on, kind of stand your arm up at that 90 degrees, so that you can't. If you lean it over too much, it's too easy to move. We want to stand it up at that 90 degrees, and then in my head, I'm going to tell the lifesaver what to do, but I'm also at the same time going to tell my body, try not to do it. I'm just going to let my brain dictate everything without activating the nerves in my hand.
Yeah,
Does that make
you're
sense?
holding it as steady as you possibly can.
I am right now trying to hold it steady, but I'm going to let my brain go, and I'm saying move it side to side. And I promise you, I'm not trying to move my hand. It's just moving side to side. Yeah. And what happens is when I stop talking about it and I don't think about what's going on, I look over at Chris or I look over at you, what starts to happen in the lifesaver? Because I'm not telling, my brain is not activating the positive intent. Wow. So if I say I want it to go into circles, I'm not going to, I could do this with my hand, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to purposely hold that hand still, but my positive intent of my brain says move this in circles. And then my positive intent says I want this thing to hold perfectly still. And you see it start to slow down. The same thing happens in our communication and in our conflict resolution, if you will. And so before we enter the room, we have to pre-program, am I going to be in positive intent or negative intent? So let's do the same thing with you, just so we can prove it out. So you can grab the string, lift that elbow up. I'm going to watch you do it. He's holding the string straight down. I don't know what he's thinking, but I'm going to read his body language, i.e. through the lifesaver, and say, right now he wants that lifesaver to go side to side. And so if I was reading his body language, I could be saying, he's wanting me to collaborate with him right now. Or if he wants it to go in circles, I'd say, okay, he wants us to go through this emotional roller coaster so we can get to, and so I'm reading what he's doing. He's moving in circles right now. I'm reading what he's doing, and what I'm doing actually is practicing reading what he's telling me through his body.
Okay.
You didn't tell it to do that at all, did you?
No.
So
is there a magnet or something?
No, there isn't. No. Inside of my head, every time your microwave goes off, I piss my pants and forget my name.
Because I was, you read it. I said side to side, and it started going in my own mind, side to side. You saw it, and then I changed it to circles, and you saw that as well.
So I just did this with a group, about 50 people. And just like you, they're like, wait a minute, what kind of voodoo is this? I'm not trying to move my hand, but my brain's telling me what to do. There was about 5 people in the room who literally was like, this is voodoo. This is, forgive me, this is bullcrap. And I was like, that's called negative intent. You had already programmed in your head that this is not going to work. And what happened with your hand and your body at that point? You've already programmed that this is going to go wrong before it starts. So you get an email that has a little, curt to it, has a little bite to it. Does that make sense? And we naturally are like, oh boy, this is going to go wrong, rather than automatic, because that part of your brain's activated. We can retrain that brain to the positive intent of, I'm so glad they brought it up. This is going to get to this solution faster because they've seen it now. And we flip that brain, and your body will portray that. And whether we like it or not, even in emails, they can read that tone, if that makes sense. And so that's why I love the body face-to-face conversations. And so we got to spend a lot of time that we dictate the perception so fast, just like that lifesaver does, before we even start to talk. Does that make sense to you?
Oh man, yeah. But I think we train ourselves, right?
Correct.
So how do you? I think I used to live on the East Coast, right? And right after college.
Wonder how many lifesavers would move over there.
And I moved back, and people were like, "Hey, like, what was it like living out on the East Coast?" And we have clients out there. We have lots of friends. My son lives out there now, right? So I love going to New York and things. But I said, in that neck of the woods, you're guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
And in the Midwest, you're innocent until proven guilty. 100%. And I'm a Midwest nice type of guy, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember saying that to them. And there's just people that, for one reason or another, they just show up in a particular way. And I'm generalizing to make a point.
I love it.
But how can we retrain our brain? Like, let's just say you grew up in a really negative place where everything was about fighting and everything was about winning. And winning's not bad, but like winning, if you're always looking to seek the win, then you're gonna step on a lot of people, right?
And
how do you retrain?
And your reputation's already been established.
Yeah.
So when I think about power of intention, I think of this quote. I'm going to read this quote to you, and I'll read it twice so everybody can get it. People must be seen differently to behave differently. And that also starts with yourself. People must be seen differently to behave differently. If every time I walk in the room, I am always seen as the jokester, then until anybody sees me differently, then they're just waiting on my next punchline and never actually get any value to what I say. Does that make sense to you? So we actually have to have that internal talk with ourselves is I have to see myself as somebody different than what I have portrayed myself on the regular to get a different impact in the room I need to go into. Does that resonate to you?
Yeah. So you gotta show up differently.
Yeah. We say it all the time, how you show up. And so when intention is real and you want somebody to see you differently, then you're going to have to actually work on those steps to do so, which means you're going to have to take time of don't think of what it's going to be. Think of don't think of what it is, the negative email, the negative conflict. Think about it, what it's going to be, and portray that when we walk out, we're kumbaya, we hugged it out, and the answer's already done. That has to be your intent when you walk in the room, not, I just want this to go away as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Does that help at all?
Yeah, and I think, I end up being in a lot of performance conversations with senior leaders about other senior leaders or about people that are in the organization. And this so resonates because there are people, and I've probably been in this bucket before, where you kind of get this negative feeling about a particular person because of one or two things that they did, and it's hard to shake.
You can't shake it. What do they say? The first impression, right?
Right.
And so we have to take that time of intent for ourselves to let us see themselves in a different light, or we're going to continue to behave on how we saw them the first time. That's why they say first impressions matter. And they do and they don't. They do in the sense of how you want to show up, but how I perceive you, I have to give you the power of grace to say, I'm going to change my intent and see if this persists again. And I can't tell you how many business owners, first time I met with them to today who I'm meeting with them, I'm so thankful that I went through that step to say, let me step back, because the first perception was, oh my God, what have I got myself into, right? And now I'm like, I'm so glad I stepped back and said, there's a positive that can come out of this. And let's see where it goes.
Yeah. So there's a leader here in town that Marsha Barnes. Oh. So Marsha's the CEO.
Great book she just wrote, by the way.
Marsha's the CEO of Valve and Meter Performance Marketing, and one of the ways she leads, one of her core values is love, and the way she unpacks it is that love is a choice. Like, you choose to love somebody. Yeah. Like, you've got to show up one day, and I'm not talking about like relationship love or whatever. I mean, like intimate
love the value
relationship.
of the person you are.
But I'm going to love this person.
Yep.
Because when you love the person and then you make the commitment to serve that person, then you can choose your behaviors with that person each and every day.
Correct.
Like if this is somebody that's really struggling or not performing or whatever, if you're showing up from this place of, okay, I'm going to choose to love this person and I'm going to choose to serve this person, to help them become the best version of themselves possible, it totally changes the way you show up in a room.
Correct. And having the self-awareness, I'll pick on me for a second. When I know that my intent can't be in the positive nature, I tend to just shut it off because I feel like I'm not going to be good with that person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so this was an awakening of, okay, how do I unlock a little bit different? I'm not going to do it overnight. It's going to take time. But, you are who you hang out with.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when you see yourself that if somebody's always negative intent and it's pulling you back into that side, sometimes you got to shut it off, reset yourself, and then come back in and say, okay, let's see if I can change that conversation. You're probably, I'm a baseball guy. You're probably only going to do it 2 or 3 strikes, and then be like, I don't think this is going to be the energy I need in the room.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that we're not saying that, you keep getting screwed by people and they keep taking it out on you and taking advantage and not performing and all of that. But I think as leaders, we owe it to the people that we are entrusted to lead, to at least give them 2 or 3 strikes before you make any type of performance
100%
decision.
100.
It doesn't make them bad people. It just maybe a bad fit for the organization or for your leadership.
Being an EOS implementer, we live on the core values and we measure the core values. And one time you see somebody not living that core value, and then we look for it all the time that way. Rather than flipping the brain to say, let's look for him living the core value, and then you'll see him living that core value. It's just it's the lifesaver. I'm going to portray that I'm going to see it, and it will start to exist.
Or possibly they're living the core value in a way that you don't define the core value. Like if I were to say to you,
what a conversation to have.
We produce results for our clients ASAP.
Mm-hmm. Well,
what does ASAP mean?
That's today.
For me, it might be in the next 5 minutes, and for you, it might be in the next year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we got to qualify those things.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation that needs to be had. And when you go in with the intent of the Chinese torture right here, right? That rather than you be right on 5 minutes and me be right on a year, let's just lean in and connect and find out what ASAP means to us. And let's get that on the same page.
Yeah. So a couple of things that I'm thinking about as ways that people could really apply this is, for the next week, every planned interaction that you're going to have with somebody, grab your notebook out real quick or your however you take notes, and write down what you're feeling about this person or this topic or whatever. Are you rolling in with this negativity up about the person or the topic or whatever?
Yep.
Or are you rolling in with positive intent?
Yeah. Dump that emotional and get to your executive as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Because that executive brain wants to solve. It wants peace. It desires peace. Right? And the back of your brain just doesn't want to get hurt. Yeah. And so when you walk in saying, I just don't want to get hurt or don't want to get scarred, rather than I just want to find that peace, and the peace is going to be through collaboration, it's a different approach.
Yeah.
I love writing down, and then I love writing down, here's what the result's going to be.
Yeah.
Predict your future before we come out.
Yeah. And I think it's important for us all to realize that everybody that is I've met very few people that show up for work and say, I want to take advantage of the person I work for. I want to screw up this business. Yeah. I want to be an awful person. I want to da-da-da. Everyone that's showing up has, if you're 40 years old, you got 40 years of a way of thinking. And there's a lot of research that shows that, the way you think, the way you make decisions, things like that is all like hardwired into you by the age of like 10.
Yeah.
It's very early on.
13 at the max.
Yeah. And then you've got another, 27, if you're 40, 27 years or whatever of
experience, proving that right.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, everybody listens to digital music, but when you think about the old vinyls or even CDs, all that's hard coded into those CDs or vinyls, and it's hard to get out of those grooves.
Yeah.
That
record that's been pressed.
Yeah. And so we have to show up going, everybody's got that. And I gave the example of New York in the past. I've spent enough time in New York to know it's hard living.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to live in New York. And a lot of that, because of that, then that's why you hear, New Yorkers are a little bit harder, right? They're a little bit more direct. They're to the point. They speak their mind a lot more and all of that. You have to live out there, right?
It's funny you say that because I make fun of drivers and New York drivers. Mm-hmm. I was driving here. Somebody like zipped around me, cut me off, and then cut the person in front of him off. What's my natural? My natural wants to do what?
Yeah, flip him the bird.
Yeah. And then I started thinking from a positive intent, maybe he's rushing home because his mom's sick, or maybe something just happened, or he's late for work and he can't be late for this meeting. Give him his grace and positive intent of, I hope he gets there safely, because it's important enough for him to go do that, rather than he's just a jackass, which is what we lean to.
Yeah, I think so. And it's just a default mechanism.
It is.
And so I think this is a really good wake up for all of us that are out leading people, to show up in all of our interactions with positive intent and see how things, start to change.
Yeah, write the answer before you go in. I bet you that answer starts to persist.
Good. This is good
I appreciate
stuff.
it. Thanks, man. Thanks for going there with me today.
Yeah.